You guys know each other?
I love her.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I'm like that. She's like,
Oh, we're good.
I admire
So I made him call it.
There you go.
In fact, tell him, didn't I pull out his book the other day and I said, read this book? And as proof of that, actually, oh my God, you-
There will be a quiz later.
this is a very informal club. Because I'll make a formal club, but seriously, didn't we just have this conversation a couple weeks ago? One of the best references, not only for Tung's acupuncture, but the introduction alone is worth the weight of 50 volumes of this book. Because I think with what Henry does and what he's gonna do.
Right. Good evening, everybody, both in person and online. Hello and welcome. I'd like to first express, I'm working from a script, so sorry. It's authentic, but I'm making sure I hit the high points. I want to express my gratitude for your presence this evening, both in person and online. And we're really excited to have you all for our 154th meeting as a Kamwo meetup group. Big number, it's amazing. So my name is Donna Ma, and I am the host on behalf of Kamwo this evening. And I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of our members, whether you're here in person or joining online. Tonight, we aim to provide, provide an enjoyable and informative experience and have plans to host more in-person events like this about once a month. I think the next event is going to be featuring Emily Stenmark. I don't know the title or the details yet, but keep your eyes open for that. The core mission of our meetup group is to connect our members with esteemed authorities in our profession. We're deeply committed to using events like this to foster connections and build a stronger sense of community within our field, something that's really important. To know more about events similar to this one, there's a private Facebook group named Kamwo Meetup that is exclusive for Chinese medicine practitioners and students. We encourage you to join the group, and if you haven't yet, to stay updated for our upcoming events. As a special thank you for attending tonight's event, each of you will receive an email containing a $20 coupon for use at Kamwo's eScript online store. Along with the coupon, a link to the recording of today's lecture will be made available to you as well. So definitely take notes, but you'll have a backup. Please check the email to be forthcoming early next week. If you don't see an email, please check your spam folder or email events@kamwo.com. Tonight's talk is expected to last about an hour and a half. This will include the lecture and a Q&A session, and we expect to conclude around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Before we begin, I'd like to share a couple of ground rules. For those who are attending via live simulcast, please keep your mic on mute to minimize background noise and hold off on verbal questions until our guest speaker is ready to take questions. You can definitely type into the chat. Ray and I will be monitoring and sort of culling them as we go. If you have an urgent or relevant comment, please type in the chat box. As your host, I will notate questions and make sure Henry gets to see them towards the end. This is to ensure that the lecture remains uninterrupted. Same goes for those here in person. Let's try to hold questions to the end. Before I hand over to our esteemed guest speaker, let me share a brief introduction about Henry McCann. Dr. Henry McCann finished his initial training at the New England School of Acupuncture and then advanced his practice doctoral degree at the Oregon College of Oriental Medicine. It's a mouthful, where he is still a core faculty member of the doctoral program. He taught at the Pacific College for over 15 years and is also currently on the doctoral faculty for the Academy of Chinese Culture and Health Sciences in Oakland, California. Dr. McCann is the author of Pricking the Vessels, Bloodletting in Chinese Medicine, and the co-author of The Practical Atlas of Tung's Acupuncture, and has lectured on Tung's acupuncture across the US, Europe, Australia, and Asia. Kamwo, I think, is the exclusive distributor.
They're the US distributor.
The US distributor for the book. I personally and professionally highly recommend securing the text. It's really rich, not only in Tung's methodology, but also the foundations and connections, which Henry will talk more of. So without further ado, Dr. Henry McCann.
Thank you. Watch the time. They don't have a clock otherwise, right? No. So I'll keep it there. Ooh, angle up just a little, maybe. Okay. I think that is, all right, so it's really nice to be here again. I think Tom would remember, I don't remember exactly. I think the very first meetup I did here was like 15 or more years ago. Well, it was a long time ago, so I like doing the meetups, and we did at least one, maybe we did two, I don't know. That was completely online. The last one I did was completely online. So it's nice to be back in person with people. But it's also nice that we have now the technology to be able to do it both, right? So people who can't make it here tonight can still be here and can participate. By the way, if anyone wants a copy of the PowerPoint presentation when we're done, you can email me, or I don't know if Hayun can email participants out, or you can email me directly and I can.
Okay.
Either way, doesn't matter.
You can do that.
Okay, that's fine, because then you can get a copy of the PDF, so that you have the slides. You don't have to write everything down, because there's some diagrams. You may or may not have text out of the diagram, so that way you'll have it as a reference. So tonight, basically, what we're going to do is just go through and give you really a very easy introduction to Tung's acupuncture. And I'm just out of curiosity, for those of you who are here in person, how many of you are like totally new to Tung's acupuncture? Right. So it's interesting, over time, more and more people have at least heard of it and get some of the ideas. How many of you use it regularly in your practice already? Good. Okay. So there's always a little bit of a mix. Which is actually a good thing. I think it's an interesting thing. And it's really good that it's out there being talked about more. When I was doing my initial training back in the 1990s, it was like, I first found out about this system there was this bookstore down near Chinatown, Boston, that it was a martial arts supply store on the first floor and bookstore, second floor, that I went to, and I bought Miriam Lee's book that was published by Blue Poppy many years ago. And I remember opening this book and thinking, how can I have been in acupuncture school for like 3 years now and never heard of this at all, right? Because it was still very, very new at the time, at least very new here in the United States or in the Western world. And that sort of annoyed me, and it piqued my interest, because so that's how I got interested in bloodletting. I had one of my teachers say, bloodletting is the most important thing. And then why aren't you teaching it? So that annoyed me and piqued my interest at the same time. So that said, it's nice that there's more of it out there. What I do find, though, is that sometimes people learn it as like, okay, I'm just learning this point, use it for this one thing or this one. Do we lose our feed? Oh, no, they were back. Okay. So hopefully what I'm going to try to model is not just like points for the sake of learning points, but what are some of the ways we can sort of conceptualize why we're using these points and when we're using them, right? So the superficial study of any acupuncture system really is, just memorize this, or learn the kidney 2 clears empty heat, which it doesn't, totally doesn't, and it totally does at the same time. But you just sort of memorize this and then apply it from memory, rather than trying to understand the inner mechanisms of what we're trying to do with needles, right? And an hour is a short time to really do that in depth. But hopefully I'll try to model for you some of the thinking that goes behind why are we using these points in this specific case. And then the other thing I figured we'd do tonight, which is a little different from sometimes how we teach basic introductions, is we're going to do this through the lens of a case study. So rather than just talking theoretically, this is supposed to do this, this is supposed to do this, this is supposed to do this, I said, okay, let me take a case study, and a case study that I'm working on in my clinic actively right now. So I'm going to present to you the first 4 treatments. This woman had her 5th treatment this morning. And so I can report back, but I didn't have enough time to put it in the PowerPoint to give to you. So this is an active case that was only like 2.5 weeks old in my clinic. So you'll get an idea of what is it that we do on a day-to-day basis. And this is how I treat the vast majority of my patients. So you'll hopefully also get a view of something that might be a little different from what you might have been taught in practice. Not to say what you were taught is a bad thing, but there are a lot of different options in terms of how I treat. When I went to school initially at the New England school, we were trained, or I was at least trained equally as much in Japanese acupuncture as I was in DCM acupuncture. So, and more than one type of Japanese acupuncture. So from the beginning, I was predisposed to think that there are many different ways that we can approach a problem from any one lens. And so I think it's particularly useful for people, especially coming from primarily TCM backgrounds, who are really taught one systems model of looking at the body, that there are lots of different ways that we can potentially take the same material, take the same channel, same points, and apply it in very different and flexible ways. And ultimately, that's the point. We need to come up with a way that's a flexible treatment system so that when we see a patient, I have no idea how to treat you, we can at least start from somewhere. Okay, so that's the basic idea, what we're going to do. So first, for people who are completely new to the system, just a very, very brief background. This is a photo of a person that we affectionately call Master Tung. Master Tung was the last person in his family in this specific lineage to practice his unique family system of acupuncture. So the Tung system of acupuncture was one of those things which is not atypical in Chinese culture and history, that was a guarded family secret. So like if you're an outsider, sorry, you can't learn it. So this was a thing that was passed down through this one family line, and he lived, I think his birth date was 1916 and he died 1973, I think it was 73 or 74. Just to give you a rough, ballpark idea of when he was alive. He learned from his father. He grew up in Shandong province, which is in the sort of northeastern part of China, the little peninsula that juts off towards Korea. Like many traditional practitioners, he did not have any formal schooling. It's most likely that he was functionally illiterate. He probably could read and write a little bit, but not really much. So he learned essentially from his father by watching him in the clinic, watching what he did, memorizing where these points were supposed to be. From the stories that we have, he memorized a long sort of mnemonic poem. Yeah.
I want to see the slideshow.
You're reading a surprise by getting the next slide. Are they not seeing the slides on?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go. Now we're sharing. Okay. That's fine. That's good. All right. Okay. So Master Tung, not much if you're online, there's nothing really much to have seen except the title page and now this photo of Master Tung. So we're good where we are. So Master Tung learned from watching his father. He had no formal training in really anything. And what happened, most of us know the basic history of China. This is the 19-teens, really into the 1920s and 30s is the warlord period. There was a relatively ineffective central government in mainland China, which then was sort of taken down by the Maoists, by the communists under Mao Zedong. So the nationalists, the Kuomintang, who were the theoretically in charge party before that, basically went to Taiwan. Right. There were plenty of other people in Taiwan, but they went to Taiwan and set up their seat of government there, which is why today we have the two China thing, right? We have the mainland China and Taiwan. So Master Tung, since he was very patriotic also, evidently people in Shandong were really, they liked being from Shandong. When he was still probably in his late teens, he joined the Kuomintang army. And since he was a member of the army, when the war was essentially over in 1949, if you were in the army, you knew it was good for you, you got out of Dodge, because it wasn't very hospitable place if you were a member of the Kuomintang army when the Maoists took over mainland China. So whatever family he had left, he went to Taiwan. He stayed in the military until the early 1960s, and only then when he retired from the military, did he open his own first solo practice in Taipei, the capital of Taiwan. When he was there, he became fairly well known as a really talented acupuncturist. A lot of famous TCM doctors in their own right went to study acupuncture with Master Tung. So he eventually, I guess the important piece of that story there, before we get to that, is at some point in the 1960s, he decides to essentially break with probably centuries, according to the family story, 2,000 years, probably not actually 2,000 years, but without a doubt, centuries of tradition, and take students from outside the family line. He had one son who, from all accounts, was not interested in learning acupuncture. So you were faced with this dilemma of, do I let all this die with me, or do I decide I want to give it to future generations somehow? In the 1960s, mid-1960s, of course, is the time of the Cultural Revolution in mainland China. Chiang Kai-shek, who was always going head-to-head with Mao Zedong, at least in terms of politics and policy, decided as a counter movement to the Cultural Revolution that was happening in mainland China, where everything traditionally Chinese, there had the four olds, I don't remember all of them, like the old culture, old thoughts, something like that. So all of that was like, we're going to get rid of it in mainland China. We don't like it anymore. And interestingly, many TCM doctors actually were sent to the countryside for re-education, were put out of practice. Many of them decided it wasn't worth practicing anymore because Chinese medicine was one of the olds, right? Which is why, of course, we have electroacupuncture now. Not because every traditional doctor said, oh, great, electricity is a great idea. No, because it looks modern, smells modern, sexy, scientific, right? So let's start making something old, very, very new, so we can survive through this time period of rapid modernization, right? So what was happening in Taiwan around the same time was that Chiang Kai-shek said, let's establish the cultural renaissance movement to try to preserve and protect traditional Chinese culture. Master Dong, having been very bitter from essentially being expelled from his family homeland, said, all right, we're going to preserve Chinese culture and I'm going to preserve my system of acupuncture and by taking students. So starting in the late 1960s, he started taking students from outside the family. In 1968, I think it was, he produced a small basically not handwritten, but small, like set of lecture notes for his students. It was like a stripped down version of what eventually would become his book. Then in the early 1970s, there was the publication of a book. He was the author, he didn't really write it. One of his students, Yuan Guoban, was essentially the ghostwriter who wrote it under the direction of Master Dong to present his system in written form for the first time. That was anyone could buy. Before that, the notes were just given to students. So that's essentially where the system comes from in terms of historically. His students continue to teach students and they continue to teach students and so forth and so on. And then I think it's really nice that it's sort of spread around the world. The unfortunate ending to the story was that Master Dong was eventually, at the end, denied a license to practice in Taiwan. There are lots of potential reasons for this, but he essentially closed his door, stopped treating patients, and a couple of years later, he was dead of stomach cancer, which he refused treatment for. So there is all sorts of things we can potentially read into that. So that's essentially the basic history of where the system comes from. Let's just dive into the case and start talking a little more about that. There we go. Got it. So this is the case. We have let's move this up here a little bit. I can move, but there you go. I'm used to a Mac. I don't have right and left click. Okay. So this is a case of facial pain. This is an 80-year-old female. Main complaint is facial pain. About 6 months prior to when she saw me, and so she saw me about 2.5 weeks ago, right? So this is a very recent case. So about 6 months ago, she had vertigo and decided to go to physical therapy for treatment of her vertigo. So during physical therapy, which they do things like the adeptly maneuver where they turn the head one side, one side, one side, one side, she basically has started having neck pain with right? So the vertigo is okay, but the neck was not so okay, which then radiated into her face. She went to get diagnostics for the neck pain, and they did an MRI, all sorts of stuff. She had cervical spondylosis, so the degenerative disc disease in the cervical spine, which obviously was causing the facial pain, probably causing the dizziness, and it may or may not have been appropriate to do like neck maneuvering for this. So, and basically she had this since she came in, so several months duration. She had pain mostly in the right ear, the jaw, right? And so when the patient comes in, here's what you do. You say, where does it hurt? Then you have to actually look at them and say, show me where it hurts, right? Because that's an important thing. If you just here and you're doing your electronic record keeping, where does it hurt? Back pain, okay, back pain. It's not going to be as useful as actually looking and seeing where they're pointing to. So she pointed to here, right? So start thinking, okay, where's the pain? Went down here. So she had positive, basically trigger points all up and down the trapezius. Scalings were definitely involved. Really tender masseter on palpation. So all this sort of stuff, this is where essentially it was. She was already on gabapentin, which is the generic for Neurontin, 100 milligrams BID is twice a day. Celebrex, 100 milligrams per day, and then Tylenol, 500 milligrams each time as needed, right? And this person actually, she's a retired pharmacist, so she knows exactly what all these do. And she came in and said, what I really want to do is I want to not take the medication. I want to get off the medication. In particular, you want to get off Celebrex pretty quickly. So, all right, that's the case that's in front of us. The question then is, what do we do in order to try to address the case? So one of the things that is, aside from the points, everyone says, oh, there's all these weird points. Everyone knows lingo probably, and probably people know a couple other points. So when people see Dong's acupuncture from the outside, the most obvious feature is all these different points, because then you get panicked, oh, how can I memorize all these different points? And all these weird numbers for all these points, which is why I didn't even bother putting the numbers in the handout, because they're all weird, very weird numbers. So, but another important feature of this system is that one of the main strategies that we use, and in my opinion, let's have a moment of honesty. There's not really any such thing as like Japanese acupuncture, Korean acupuncture, TCM acupuncture, Dong's acupuncture. It's all based on the same core essential principles of things like yin-yang, 5-phase, channel systems. What characterizes the differences is the algorithm, is the strategy. How do we look at the patient and assess them? What do we do in terms of what's our first step in prioritizing treatment? What's our second step in prioritizing treatment, right? So one of the priorities in treatment and one of the strategies of treatment in Dong's acupuncture is the reliance on distant point needling. I'm going to encourage you all to stop saying distal point needling, because distal is a specific anatomical direction, right? Distal means away from the trunk, proximal is towards the trunk. So Dong's acupuncture sometimes uses distal needling, sometimes proximal needling, sometimes anterior versus posterior, right? But the most common strategies were needling away from the site of disease, okay? And this is not unique to Dong's acupuncture. This is something that is important to keep in mind. So to show you it's not unique to Dong's acupuncture, we are giving you a couple of quotes because we can't escape without giving some Neijing quotes. The Neijing police will come club us over the back of the head. So here's a quote from the 5th chapter of the Suen that says, hence those who know well how to use the needles, right? And that character is, Shan is like goodness almost. This is the archaic character for Shan. This is the one that has the goat in it, right? Donna can give you a meetup on the symbolism of goat later sometime. From the yin, they pull the yang, and from the yang, they pull the yin. With the right, they treat the left, and the left, they treat the right, right? And if we really understand concepts of yin yang and 5 phases, this makes sense, right? One of the reasons this works is because yin and yang are mutually intertwined. They mutually transform into one another. So if we give a stimulus of some sort to one part of the body based on all these different connections of yin yang, which then are manifested through organs, through channels, etc., we can have that stimulus get to the diseased location. Okay? So honestly, in the last year or two or so, I think we should even stop using the term distant needling, because essentially it's just one system. You know, it's not like I'm doing distant healing where I'm like throwing chi at someone, right? We're placing a needle or doing some other intervention to just one body, right? Just because one part of the body is diseased and we put a needle somewhere else, maybe it's distant on the same body, but it's just one body. We're still needling the same body. We're still needling the same channel system. So it's not that it's completely unrelated. There's relationships. And what we have to do if we're doing distant needling effectively is understand all of those connections and relationships and exploit them for our therapeutic benefit. Get the idea? So essentially, all the points, and this is how all acupuncture works, really. It works because of the relationships that are inherent in the physical body. Okay? Keep that in the back of your head. So this is other, just in case you don't believe me. When the disease is above, remove from below. When the disease is below, remove from above, from on high. When the disease is in the head, remove from the feet. When the disease is in the low back, remove from the hollow of the knee. And you all know as TCM practitioners, like what's one of the best points for low back pain? Bladder 40, right? And this is just a point combination we use in Dong's acupuncture fairly commonly. Bladder 40, 39, and there's an extra point on the other side. So you can just needle 3 points right across the back of the knee. Interestingly, the idea of distant needling is not at all unique to Dong's acupuncture, but really in many ways deeply embedded even in our own TCM tradition. I'll use TCM just as a stand-in for acupuncture based on regular channel systems that we would have learned in school, right? If we look at the Neijing, for example, there is a chapter on low back pain. I think it's the 14th or something like that chapter of the Suwen, somewhere in there. And it gives us a certain, or no, it's like 39 or 40. Anyway, it's somewhere in the Suwen. You can look it up. If in there, it gives us over a dozen different types of low back pain, and not a single one of them gets local needling. They're all done exclusively with distant needling, right? So this is a tradition that doesn't exist only within Dong's acupuncture, but it's deeply rooted within our own sort of medical system as well, okay? So let's look first back, let's go back to this case and try to figure out how we can take this apart. So here we have the patient. So first thing we need to figure out is what is the location of the disease, right? Especially when we're looking at pain cases. We can have location of disease defined in several different ways. One of the priorities in TCM acupuncture, and in particularly TCM as a modern systems approach to acupuncture, is a focus on Zangfu pattern differentiation. And we spent a lot of time going through that in school. It's great. I love Zangfu as much as the next guy. But one of the reasons that Zangfu differentiation is prioritized in TCM is because primarily TCM is an herbal paradigm that then was extrapolated to acupuncture. And again, that's not necessarily in and of itself a bad thing. It is just a thing that we need to be aware of. So there are certain biases that are built into the system because of that sort of worldview, where herbs are the dominant mode of treatment. Okay. Dong's acupuncture, Japanese acupuncture, which is maybe why I was predisposed to liking Dong's acupuncture, because herbal medicine is not really a major part of the tradition, right? Master Dong dabbled in some herbs. In Japan, herbalists and acupuncturists are separate. Acupuncturists are not by law allowed to do herbs. Their focus is on acupuncture as the dominant mode. When acupuncture becomes the dominant mode, the channel system becomes a bit more important as a primary focus of diagnosis and then our target of treatment, especially when we have pain as a main complaint, right? If the person's not taking, let's be honest, if a person's not taking herbs and they have, like, let's say spleen dampness and headache, does adding like spleen 9 in addition to other points for headache really, if that one point going to make the only difference in treatment? I'll tell you from 25 years in practice, probably not, right? With herbs, it's going to make a bigger difference. With acupuncture, maybe, but sometimes not as much of a difference. So we have to go back and first decide, where is the location? What part of the body is diseased? So in this case, we know we have the radiating of the pain from here, goes into here, right? So the primary diagnosis is stasis in the Yang-Ming channel, right? So we saw Yang-Ming can be both stomach as well as large intestine. Remember, the large intestine channel, all the Yang channels go and bind to the spine. So all of them get us to the spine. This area here, she pointed out very, like right here, right along the jaw, stomach channel, down the neck. So we had stomach channel involved here. We also said right here, so we have like basically Sanjiao channel involvement into the neck, some maybe gallbladder and some Sanjiao into the shoulder as well. So the primary channels based on the location of her disease, when I palpated and when she described it, were mostly in the Yang Ming and the Xiaoyang mainly. Now, if you are not used to thinking of channels in these terms, start doing it. Because as an acupuncturist, it's important, right? Remember that the large intestine in the large intestine channel is the last piece of that name, right? In Chinese, it's called the Shou Yang Ming, the arm Yang Ming of the large intestine. Large intestine is the last piece of it. So the fact that it's this channel distribution is important to understand when we're applying acupuncture, okay? So that, and based on some of the other signs and symptoms, we can also potentially say that she has, if we wanted to address any of the organs, there's an aspect of insufficiency of the kidney, there's a vacuity of the kidney, okay? That's the main diagnosis we're working with. Okay. So this is the question then, is with distant needling, how do we treat the local area? Right? How do we get the stimulus to the local area? What area resonates with the area of pain or dysfunction? And because we always have to be, in life, we have to get into the weeds and say, okay, this is what's happening, but then we can't forget the broader principles. So let's go back to this broad principle. Whoop. No, that's it. Sorry. We got it. So this is because, we have to quote from either the I Ching, the Tao Te Ching, something like that. This is a quote from the I Ching for tonight. This is the Book of Changes. This is a commentary on one of the lines from the first hexagram. The first, for those of you who do all know what hexagrams are, there's a series of solid and broken lines that represent yin and yang. The very first hexagram in the text in the Book of Changes is Qiangua. Qian means heaven, and it's all yang lines. The second one is all yin lines. That's Kunhua, it's earth, right? Because heaven initiates, earth responds, and then you have all the myriad things happen after that. So this is a quote from the commentary. It says, 9 in the 5th place. This is 9 refers to a yang line, a yang moving line, and it's in the 5th place, means it's the 5th lineup. The dragons soar in the sky. It will be advantageous to see the great person. What does that mean? The master said, and the master is Yue, Confucius, of course, that he's the master, Gongzi. Notes of this is the important thing. Notes of the same key respond to one another, and the same qi mutually seeks. Tung qi xiang qiu. That's in the red in the Chinese there. Right. This is the essential principle we're going to be talking about. Water flows towards the place that is low and damp. Fire rises up towards what is dry. Clouds follow the dragon, and winds follow the tiger. The sage makes an appearance, and all people look to them. Things that draw their origin from heaven move towards what is above, and things that draw their origin in the earth cleave to what is below. So does everything follow its kind. Right? Tongqi xiangqiu. In modern Chinese, Tongqi xiangqiu is sort of like birds of a feather, right? And that's it. It's the birds of a feather principle. That's one of the basic things. So, for example, in the Neijing, it says, in chapter 2 of the Suen, this is the chapter that tells us about the seasons and basically how do you stay healthy with the seasons. Okay, so in winter, you're supposed to do certain things that are winter-like, right? Winter is all about hibernation, storage. So we have to try to not really engage as much. You want to stay warm. You got to protect your vital chi, sleep a little more because there's less sunlight, right? So we used to teach the Neijing class and the 6 to 9 block at Pacific, and 9 o'clock, on December 3rd or whatever. I'm like, we're all like, we're doing the wrong thing by like being out, up and studying at this time of night instead of being home and hibernating, right? So the way we stay healthy is by resonating with the similar movement. In springtime, things are more active. So this is a time you're supposed to get out more. You're supposed to do more physical activity. You can get up a little earlier. Sun's getting up a little earlier. Summer, more active, right? So there are different things that, and we all know there are different foods we can eat based on the different flavors for different seasons. So when we are in resonance with that greater movement, then we can potentially be in a state of health, right? The best example I can give you, because I was trained as a musician as an undergraduate, is that I had a friend a long time ago. He played the sitar and he wanted to learn saxophone. So like, I tell you what, for a month, you teach me sitar and I'll teach you saxophone. So this beautiful instrument, right? The traditional Indian sitar, and you have all these strings on it that you pluck, right? And you have the frets up here and you pluck down here, but underneath it, you have all these other little strings you never touch. But what's really interesting is you pluck the big string and the little strings vibrate, right? It's that sound, that movement of sound, that wave from the large string influences the small, okay? That's what we're talking about. That's the same chi mutually seeks, but it's not every string moves every string. It's when it's in resonance with that sound, things start to resonate beneath it. So when winter does its big pluck the string winter in the universe, my body should respond in a certain way. And if it doesn't, that's when I'm in a state of dis-ease. That's when I'm in a state of not being in harmony and then essentially being in health. Okay. Got it? That's the same chi mutually seeks principle. So then when we are, right, the same chi, the chi of winter, my body seeks that chi of winter. right? It wants to move with that chi. When it doesn't, then we're in a state of disharmony. Got it? So when we are using a needle and we're not needling in the same location, we need to essentially find the same chi of the diseased location so as to get the therapeutic stimulus. And if we know what's pain, what essentially causes pain, what causes pain? Second, something's not moving, something's stuck, right? Bu tong zi tong. When there's no movement, there's pain, right? What's the treatment principle? Tong zi bu tong. Move it, pain goes away. So if we have pain, we have to see which of those channels, which chi of that channel is in a diseased state, and which channel is the same chi that we can then get to resonate with the area that's diseased. Got it? So what does that actually mean? One of the ways we can do this is by using essentially the same channel. So if we have a disease in the Taiyang channel, then we can also give us a therapeutic stimulus at the Taiyang channel, right? And we do this with, let's say, bladder 40 for back pain, right? Back pain on the bladder channel. We can needle the bladder channel, right? In a different area of the bladder channel to move the bladder channel. We also can needle the small intestine channel. Why? Because it's the same chi. It's the chi of the Taiyang. So which is, we all know in TCM, small intestine 3 can treat low back pain. And yes, of course, some smart docs say, well, the Dumai also does that. But the Dumai association with small intestine 3 is maybe 600 years old. So for like 1400 years before that, from the time of the Neijing, people were using small intestine 3 with no concept that had anything to do with the Dumai, right? That's a modern theory within Chinese medicine. So we have this embedded, or we can use in TCM Sanjiao 6 to treat rib pain. Right? This is not the Xiaoyang, I'm sorry, this is not the Sanjiao channel here, but it's the Xiaoyang channel here. Get it? So we can use Sanjiao 6 to move the chi of the Xiaoyang in the gallbladder channel because the Xiaoyang chi is essentially the same. Get the idea? So one of the strategies we can utilize is by diagnosing the channel, we can choose a treatment channel where when we apply a stimulus, we are essentially getting a resonant movement of chi and blood in the diseased channel. Especially the diseased channel is already diseased, movement of chi and blood is not so strong there. So in many ways, it is sometimes a more efficient strategy to move an area of the body where the chi and blood is already healthy to stimulate the movement of chi and blood where the chi and blood is not so healthy. Get it? Okay. Now, notice, all right, we'll go back to this. Notice, Taiyang treats Taiyang. Xiaoyang treats Xiaoyang, right? Yangming treats Yangming. What are we noticing? Yang treats Yang and Yin treats, right. Now, what did chapter 5 of the Suen say before?
It follows.
Yeah, we basically lead the Yin from the Yang and the Yang from the Yin. So we also need to be aware of what are some of the other connections in the channel systems that allow us to utilize Yin and Yang channels to treat one another. Right? One of the ways we can do this is through interior-exterior paired channels, which you all memorized. Lung and large intestine treat one another, spleen and stomach, kidney, bladder, etc. Right? That's why we can use like kidney 3 to treat bladder channel back pain also. Got it? Now, but there's more. There are other connections that we can potentially exploit. So this is derived from the 6th chapter of the Suen, and it tells us basically what are the different layers doing. So it says the Taiyang is the opening, right? What exactly is opening? We can have a big discussion. That can be a full semester course, right? The Yangming is the close, and the Xiaoyang is the pivot. You all heard at some point, Xiaoyang is the pivot. Great, okay. The Yin layer, the Tai-Yin is the opening, the Jue-Yin is the close, the Xiaoyin is the pivot. So essentially, they are also of the same chi because they have similar resonant functions. Right? Who's just graduated or about to graduate? All right. Are you in the herbal program? Quiz time. All right, here's a quiz. People online can do the quiz also. We'll give people like 30 seconds online, then I'll torture you. Okay. So for example, do you still learn Ma Huang as one of the first herbs? All right. Okay. What channels does Ma Huang enter? Just think about it for a second. See if anyone online types in.
Oh, we got an answer.
All right. So don't tell us yet.
Okay.
What's your answer? And no, close. UB is yes. What are they saying?
Lung.
Lung and
Thai.
it's actually not the tongue, it's the lung and the bladder, right? So yes, it is the taiyang, but it's not both small intestine and it's the lung and the bladder channel. Now, why? Because the lung and the bladder are the same function. The lung is that which opens to the exterior on the inside, on that yin level, and the bladder channel is the most exterior of the channel, so it opens the exterior on that yang there, right? So even within herbal medicine, these relationships are deeply embedded, right? And Guager is the same, except we also add in heart with Guager because of the warm, acrid, reddish color, right? Clearly it's doing something with blood movement and heart, okay? But otherwise, Guager also enters lung and bladder channel. So this is another way we can exploit channel relationships because these channels also are essentially of the same qi, right? How we're defining that qi is slightly different, but they're still of the same qi. So here's the punchline, right? So we can use small intestine, spleen, lung, and bladder. For example, if you open up Deadman, right? And I know you, so what does lung 5 do? Go ahead. What does lung 5 do? Right, there's all sorts of lung stuff. Did you know lung 5 also treats back pain? And that's a TCM thing. It's in Deadman as one of the main indications for, well, maybe not the main indication, but it's an indication for lung 5. Why does it treat back pain? Because the Tai Yin also has a connection to the Tai Yang. The lung can treat the bladder channel. Okay. It also happens to treat knee pain, which and can treat knee pain of the bladder channel or the spleen channel. Why? Because it can treat the Tai Yang can treat the Tai Yin can treat the Tai Yang, lung can treat bladder, back of the knee, or Tai Yin can treat Tai Yin, lung can treat spleen, sort of medial knee. Okay, so the channel connections. So by essentially stimulating a channel, we are stimulating all sorts of relationships in the body. How we get it to the specific area, we'll talk about shortly. Okay, so here's the back to the case. Here's the treatment then. How does this work in the actual clinic? So here we have the patient. The treatment we did were so pain is on the right side. On the left side of the body, we did a point called Si Sanli, which means next to Sanli. What's Sanli? 3 miles. Stomach 36, Zu Sanli. So basically, it's next to stomach 36, tells you where it is. Something called Si Sha Sanli, next to and down from stomach 36. And we did a point called the 4 limbs, Sujur. I'll give you diagrams in a second. Then on the right side, we did something called Feishin, which is on the back of the finger. And on the left side, we did Lingo. Right, so here's where we are. So Tsu Sanli and Tsu Sha Sanli are located between the stomach and gallbladder channels. So essentially, you're going from stomach 36, so 7708 is the same as stomach 36. You're going lateral by a tsun and a half. So you're basically going from the stomach to the area between the stomach and the gallbladder channel. That's the first point. Then you're going to go tutsun below that, and you're going to put 2 points right next to each other. Okay. This is a basic strategy in Tung's acupuncture, is the combining of 2 or 3 points in a small, essentially geographic region of the body to give us a stronger stimulus of a specific area. Now, what's one of the reasons why we choose these points in particular? These points are located on what channel? The Yang Ming end. We're sort of in between them, right? So here's also, see those diagrams, see the one line in the body, one line in the body. That's only good before you take the test. Once you passed your test and you have your license, just forget about it. Because it's not as if a channel is just one black line that's very, very thin on the body, okay? The nature of channels is much more complicated than that. Start thinking of channels as watercolors. You have one color here, and there's a blending and mixing of the in-between. So if we have both a Yang Ming and a Xiaoyang distribution in terms of pain, then we can choose a point on both the Yang Ming and the Xiaoyang, or if we want to be more efficient, we can choose something in a zone between the Xiaoyang and the Yang Ming to target that area of disease. Got it? Okay. So far, so good? Lingu, I think we all probably know where Lingu is. Lingu is in the area of large intestine 4, as far back as you can go towards the bony juncture. This treats all sorts of facial pain. Clearly, this one is also on the Yang Ming channel, right? So this gets stomach, large intestine, all that. So we're reinforcing the area that we're treating. Sujur is essentially a a version of spleen 6. So it's spleen 6 4th up instead of 3rd up. And you do this by palpation, right? The other thing you eventually have to do is touch your patients if you're doing acupuncture. My grandmother used to say, do you really like touching dirty people? I'm like, yes, grandma. I like touching dirty people. Yes, thank you. So you have to palpate, right? So you go basically start at spleen 6 and slowly work your way up until you find an Ashura location. That's the forelimb point. And as you can see from the indications, it treats pains of the forelimb, neck pain, diabetes we can come back to, because it does have a kidney association. Spleen 6 has a kidney association. So this point treats both the lesion that basically in the neck, the problem of the neck itself, but also is able to help reinforce kidney as much as we can with acupuncture. Now, spleen 6 just so happens to be the best point in the world for neck pain. Best point in the world for neck pain, right? If you don't know where to start, you're kind of tired that day, you want to do something for neck pain. Anyone here with neck pain? Anyone? Anyone? Neck pain? Turning your head right to left? Do you feel it now? Yeah. Where does it feel it most? There when you turn. Okay, I'm going off cam for a second. We'll be right back. Okay. On that side, yes?
Yeah.
All right. Let me know when I get it.
Sorry.
Okay.
Oh, that's so tender, actually.
Right. Turn, stretch. How does that feel?
It actually feels better.
Yeah, better, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what you do when you're deciding which point you want to do,
That's crazy.
right? When you're deciding which point you want to do, you palpate to find the tender point, right? And you get the tender point and the patient moves, feels a little better. That's your treatment point. Now, why is spleen 6 the best for all neck pain? So there's certain ways that we can map different areas of the body onto other different areas of the body. I'll show you a diagram shortly, but just think of the channels for a second. What channels do we have in the neck? We got a lot of channels, right? You actually have all 6 yang channels go through the neck. Spleen, stomach, gallbladder, bladder. Then you also have large intestine, small intestine, sanjiao. We can get it all with spleen 6. What channel is spleen 6 on? Yeah. What's the name of spleen 6 in Chinese? Or in the English translation, doesn't matter, I don't care if it's in Chinese or in English. It's the 3 yin meeting, or the crossing of the 3 yin, right? Which means it's spleen, a spleen, which can treat stomach, interior, exterior, kidney, which can treat bladder, right? Liver, which can treat gallbladder. The Tai-yin spleen treats the Tai-yang small intestine. The Dui-yin liver treats the Yang-ming large intestine. Xiao-yin kidney treats the Xiaoyang sanjiao. So one point gets all 6 channels in the neck. Beautiful. Crossing points are a big deal because one needle, many channels, not many channels, many needles for the hell of it. I had a patient come in just yesterday. She's been down in Florida for the last 3 months. She's a snowbird. And she always has neck pain, back pain. She came in and it's like going to confession. It's like, I went to another acupuncturist down in Florida. I said, oh, yeah, how was it? She said, he used 50 needles and it didn't do anything. Right? I'm like, yeah, see? I said, because you're spoiled, you come here and you get 5 or 6 needles and we're done and you're fine, right? So more needles is not necessarily better. Sometimes more needles is actually not better, right? And more needles is also not historically accurate in terms of our own tradition, right? You don't up the Neijing and they say, oh, back pain, use these 50 points. They say use these 3 points. So you'll see when in here, I used 2 needles here, 1 needle here, 1 needle here, and then 2 needles because they're a little cluster. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 needles. That was it. That's the whole treatment. No local needling, and I didn't even do cupping or anything on her. It was just distal needling. Okay, so this point we also used to target the neck. And here's the connection, right? Here's one of the ways we map this out. So we can map out different areas of the body into other different areas of the body based on yin and yang. Nothing escapes essential theories of yin and yang. Distal is yang, proximal is yin, right? So hand is yang, shoulder is yin. Same thing on the leg. Foot is yang, hip is yin, which means the hand and the foot can go together. The knee and the elbow can go together. The hip and the shoulder can go together, which is why, by the way, in TCM, in Deadman, lung 5 treats knee pain because the elbow has a relationship because of the inherent structure of the body with the knee. Get the idea? Just because it's not a major strategy in TCM doesn't mean it doesn't exist. right? It exists, it's just not their main shtick. This is one of our main shticks in terms of how we prioritize treatment in Tung's acupuncture. Get the idea? Now, because yin and yang are mutually intertwined with one another, we can use yin to treat yang and yang to treat yin, which is why instead of using the foot to treat the hand, we can use the hip to treat the hand, right? Using the yin down here to treat the yang up here, or vice versa, right? So all of these are different, and there's lots and lots of these connections in the body. I just want to get you a flavor of this. So one of the reasons spleen 6 also happens to treat neck pain is because it's in the area that is corresponding to the area of the neck. Why? Because if this is yang, in the trunk, my head is yang, right? So this is a unit that has yin and yang. This is a unit that has yin and yang. This is a unit that has yin and yang. All these different parts of my body have essential yin and yang relationships built into them. And because of that, they relate to all the other parts of the body. Get the idea? Okay. So keep that in the back of your head. This point here, Feishin, this is an excellent little point. It's on the back of the middle finger. So you can see it's 11.11. Don't worry about what the numbers mean. Feishin means lung and heart, which we can talk about some other time. It's on the posterior aspect of the middle finger. And the middle finger in Tung's acupuncture, like in Korean hand acupuncture, is essentially the dumai. So this whole thing here, the difference in, I don't really know much about Korean hand acupuncture. My understanding is very superficial. My understanding, though, is they tend to use like the entire back of the hand. In Tung's acupuncture, we just use the back of the finger. So the points closest to the nail bed are for the head. This is for like neck and upper thoracic. Down here is for like lumbar area. Get it? So this also targets the neck specifically. Okay. So these are some basic ideas in terms of how we apply the needles. First, most important, we do needling distal and usually contralateral. Eventually, sometimes you don't want to load up everything on one hand or one foot, so you can sometimes needle same side. The second thing here, the Daoma coupled horse technique, is the strategy of utilizing more than one needle in a given area to treat and affect a condition a little bit more effectively. So let's say someone comes to your clinic for nausea. What are you going to use for nausea? TCM. PC6, Naguan, right? PC6. Let's have a moment of honesty. If you open up the book and read PC7, guess what it treats? Nausea. PC4, nausea. 5, nausea. 3, they all treat nausea. So why not? It's a party. Instead of PC6, you can do PC7, 6, and 5 as a little cluster. That's Daoma needling, right? Or on the hand, large intestine 4 treats headache. Guess what? Large intestine 3 treats headache too. So why not use both of them together to give a little more oomph? That's essentially Daoma needling. And so this strategy is very highly utilized in Tung's acupuncture, so much so that this point here, for example, just gets one point name, but always has 2 needles, right? So you can see the 2 dots, 1.11, there are 2 dots, so there are going to be 2 needles on the back of the middle phalanx of the posterior middle finger, okay? Susanli to Shasanli are almost always needled together as a Daoma group. They just get different names. Got it? So that's one strategy. Then we do something called the moving qi technique. Acupuncture moves qi and blood. You know what else moves qi and blood? Moving moves qi and blood, right? Which is one of the challenges of local needling, is that once needles are in, you can't move. So we've all had the experience, if you've been in practice even only a couple of months, you know, the person with low back pain, you put them on the table, you needle the back, get them up, and they're like really stiff afterwards. Why? Because they've not been moving. The qi and blood, maybe the acupuncture is getting it moving, but sometimes moving also gets the qi and blood moving really effectively. So Tung's acupuncture combines oftentimes the aspect of moving qi and blood with needles, but also moving qi and blood with moving. So what do? We put those points in the leg first, in the hand or the finger. I say, okay, turn your neck a little bit, stretch it out. Open, close your jaw. Just use your hand to massage here before you put those needles in. Hand to massage. You see how the pain feels, right? That gets the qi and blood moving as well as the needling gets the qi and blood moving. Get the idea? And in general, we tend to use simple stimulation. We don't worry about supplementing and draining. We do that more through point selection, rather than needle technique, and long retention time, right? We can have an entire discussion about why what they taught you De Qi was is not really what De Qi is. We can go back to that some other time. We can do a meetup on De Qi sometime. And I say it based on what the Neijing tells us, not based on anything else. The Neijing tells us what De Qi is, and it's not at all what modern TCM says what De Qi is. I'm not saying it's not useful sometimes, but it's not as useful as many people think. Okay, so here's what happens. 5 days later, she came back for a second treatment. She had already discontinued the Celebrex. Pain had diminished in intensity. There was less need for as frequent Tylenol use. So we repeated the first treatment, right? Same points. 4 days after that, second treatment, there was a temporary increase in the pain in the ear, but she didn't have to go back to Celebrex. Just a little bit of a flare. So what we did was we did some palpation to check, see if the points we were doing were still applicable. So we changed it to Zhongbai, Shabai, the 3 weights, the Sanzhong 3 needles on the left side, Lingu Dabai on the right side. So Lingu Dabai on the right side is this Lingu and a point right next to it. So that's still on the Yangming channel. The Zhongbai and Shabai are located essentially at Sanjiao 3 and this other point that we sometimes call Yao Tong Shui, low back pain point, right? So essentially on the Shaoyang channel. So what we're doing with the hand, so you see the diagram here, 2, 2, 6, and 7. What we're doing with the points is just so we don't overload everything on the same side, right? On one side, we're using a Yangming channel distribution. On the other side, the Shaoyang channel distribution. Hand goes to the head, where we saw that in the diagram, right? So we're using a point that the channel goes to the channels that are diseased, and the location, the hand, has an association with the head. Get the idea? On the leg, the 3 weights also happen to be in that sort of mystical junction space between the stomach and gallbladder channels, right? They just happen to be a little lower down on the leg. So these points are located, 5, 6, and 7 are called weight number 1, weight number 2, weight number 3. Collectively, they're called the 3 weights. The first one is 3 tsun above the lateral malleolus between the fibula and the fibula and the tibia. Basically at the height of gallbladder 39, anterior to the bone instead of posterior to the bone, right? Which is interestingly where Dr. So, my grand teacher from the New England School of Acupuncture, put gallbladder 39. So it's an alternate location of gallbladder 39 in some types of Chinese acupuncture. The next point above that is Tutsun up, and then Tutsun up. So we're still getting that space between the Yangming and the Shaoyang because we're trying to get that channel distribution. This set of points here also happens to be closer to the spleen 6 on the other side, which means it gets closer to where the neck is. Get the idea? So we have the points on the hand, mirror the face with the appropriate channels. The points on the leg mirror the neck with the appropriate channels. Got it? Right? And what happened after that? So several days after the 3rd treatment, the patient returned. There was some lingering pain anterior to the right ear, but she'd stopped by then the gabapentin. So 6 months on gabapentin and Celebrex. In basically 2 weeks, she's off all that medication. And she reduced the Tylenol from 500 each time to 350 each time, taking it PRN as needed. Okay. And then I switched, you notice I switched the left and right of the Lingu Dabai and basically the left and right of the hand points, because the Lingu on one side left a small bruise. So just to not needle that same area exactly in the same location, we just flipped sides. Okay. And based on palpation, I went back to the points higher up, closer to stomach 36, based on palpation. So the other thing that's important in acupuncture practice is you have a theory, but once you have the theory in your head, that's there to get you to a potentially effective point. Eventually, what you have to do is palpate, or you can, in my clinic, I feel the point in relationship to the pulse to see if the pulse changes. There are different ways you can do that, but you want to try to elicit some sort of response, right? In this case, simply based on the palpation, I chose the other points. And today, when I saw her, actually, she was, again, not using the Tylenol as much. She hadn't had to go back to the Celebrex, the gabapentin, and we moved her from treatment twice a week to treatment once a week starting next week. And we'll see how it continues to unfold. Okay? Some other aspects of Tong Qi Shang Chou, how we use the same qi to seek itself. Frequently on yang channels, so that we can also look at this at the level of specific points. On yang channels, the shoestring points are, what's the 5-phase association? Wood, right? Shoestring points are wood. Wood goes with which of the 5 tissue? Sinews, which is really muscle tissue, right? Sinews is not tendons. Sinew is contractile force of skeletal muscle, as well as tendons, right? So acute musculoskeletal pain, we oftentimes use shoestring points on the yang channels, because as wood points that treat disorders of the sinews, ing spring points on the yin channels treat heat. On the yang channels that treat heat too, because we can either use fire to clear fire or water to cool fire as a 5-phase control cycle relationship, right? In TCM, small intestine 3 treats acute back pain or neck pain, sinew injury of the bladder channel. Taiyang treats Taiyang. Kidney 1 treats headache at the vertex because the bottom treats the top. It also treats internal wind. Why does it treat internal wind? As a Jing well point, it's a wood point. Wood points treat wind, right? Which is why you can also bleed Jing well points to release the exterior, to treat exterior wind patterns, right? These are other examples of, it's deeply embedded in Chinese medicine. We just have to move beyond, okay, I'm memorizing, it treats internal wind. Why does it treat internal wind? Foot goes to the head, so we can treat wind stirring up. And as a wood point, it treats wind because of that same qi seeking itself. You can read the rest of the stuff by yourself. All right, there's my contact information. I'll leave some time for Q&A, but that's an example of the thinking that goes on in terms of how do we approach a patient. This was, as you can see, we're using minimal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 needles in this treatment, right? So minimal treatment. I was a bit worried, I have to say, since she is Western science background, you know, what's she going to think of just putting needles here and here and no bells and whistles, no e-stim, no nothing. But she did great. She's really very funny. We were talking all sorts of problems with medical systems in general today. She's a really very engaging and engaged patient. But here we can see relatively complex case, several months of discomfort. So far, so good. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks, but certainly I'm encouraged by the fact she's able to cut back on medication, be in less pain, and hopefully we'll keep her there, right? All right, questions either from here, anything online first while we're there? Questions from here? Yeah.
Someone comes with like a main thing.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Or
Yeah. So if you can't hear it, I'm not sure if I'll repeat the question just so they can get it on mic. So the question was, what do you do with basically internal medicine cases? Pain is an easy way to sort of look at this, right? Internal medicine, though, still doesn't escape the realm of channels and other 5-phase relationships. For example, if we go back to this diagram, we can see that there are other ways that we can look at how the limbs in particular can map themselves to the trunk where the organs are located. So, for example, and I actually recently last year did a full 2-day lecture on just looking at TCM points through these lenses. So you don't even, I mean, this is acupuncture in general. It's not just Dong's acupuncture. Let's say, for example, we have palpitations and chest tightness. One of the reasons we can treat palpitations and chest tightness with points like pericardium 6 is that pericardium 6 maps itself to the chest, right? In a way that pericardium 3 just doesn't quite so much. You know what I mean? So pericardium 6 maps itself to the chest, and it happens to be the pericardium channel itself goes into the heart, into the chest, the pericardium. So we can still look at the same basic principle of where are the channels connected, what organs do they connect to, what organs are they paired with, and what area of the body do they have an affinity with. Okay? Let me give you another example. So who hasn't taken the NCCM exam yet? Who still has to take the exam? All right, here's your turn now. Ready? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's say someone has, all right, it's okay, you'll be fine, I promise. All right, here's your practice test. Better you don't get it right here than on the exam, right? So let's say someone comes in and they have like wheezing, chest tightness, and they're coughing up copious phlegm. Right? So when I say phlegm, what acupuncture point do you say? So think phlegm anywhere.
Oh.
Stomach 40. Right, here we go. Here's your quiz. Ready?
Yeah.
Here's your test prep. When I say phlegm, you say, right. When I say phlegm, you say stomach 40. Right, good. Okay, now you got it. Right? So stomach 40 is an excellent, I mean, that's like the quintessential TCM point for phlegm. Right? Let's look at maybe why this is quintessential TCM point for phlegm. So first of all, and we see it for things like treatment of asthma. This is definitely like asthma, wheezing. That's stomach 40's main point. First of all, stomach channel goes through the chest. Okay. If we look at where stomach 40 is located, you'll see it maps up, right? Maps up with the chest. We can get to the chest. We can also, in another way of mapping it up, we can also get to the middle jiao through stomach 40. They're different. This is just one way of mapping. So stomach 40 also gets to the middle jiao, which is why it treats all sorts of middle jiao problems as well. Okay. Now, just don't pay attention. If you have to take your NCCM exam yet, don't pay attention for a second. If you're in practice, let's have a moment of honesty. What channel is stomach 40 on? It's a trick question and not a trick question at the same time. Yeah, right? It's sort of let's just, do we believe the stomach channel does this? Right? Because that's what the diagram will have us believe. But the reason why stomach 40, and interestingly in Tung's acupuncture, the main phlegm points that we use happen to also be between the stomach and gallbladder channel. Right? So this set of points here, the 3 weights, is one of the main phlegm groups in Tung's acupuncture. Also between stomach and gallbladder. What's the 5-phase relationship between stomach and gallbladder? 5 phases are also important. We didn't really talk much about that tonight, but that's another aspect of vital importance to acupuncture. What earth does what? What on earth does what? Control cycle, right? So if we have an abundance of the pathology of earth, we can use wood, right? So the space between channels in a control cycle relationship tend to have more of a moving, dispersing, mobilizing function. We don't use that for supplementation per se, which is why in Tung's acupuncture, this point is mostly for excess. If we look at the indications, right, all hyperthyroidism, tonsillitis, deviation of mastitis, fibrosis, phlegm, all phlegm, phlegm. Master Tung didn't spell it out for us, but he told us. We just have to pay attention, right? Stomach 40, phlegm stuff. Right? Susanli, Tsashasanli, also between the stomach and gallbladder for things like facial paralysis, which is what? Wind phlegm. We're not for spleen deficiency. Now we're for excess mobilizing. Got it? All right. So 5-phase relationships become important. Why does the 4 gates treat liver stagnation? Do we think about it? So now it's time to move beyond. Oh, 4 gates moves liver. Why does it move liver? What channels are we using in the 4 gates? Yang Ming and Jue Yin, which by the way happen to be paired, right? So the points go together because the channels go together. Now, what's the 5-phase relationship between large intestine and liver? Yeah, metal controls wood. So if we want to course and move stagnation in wood, we can use metal to scatter and control wood. So we have it's the same damn point, same location, hand and foot, paired channels, 5-phase association. There's the control cycle relationship. And if any of you are familiar with the stems and branches, the yang metal and the yin wood stem are paired. Right, that's why the Jingwell points on the yin channels are wood and the yang channels they're metal, because there's a gung and yi. So the yang wood is gung stem, yang metal is gung stem, yin wood is yi stem. So all these relationships, acupuncture works by exploiting relationships. That's why I titled this resonance and connection. right? And over time, the beautiful thing though is that acupuncture is so based on all these connections that even if you don't understand all of them, it oftentimes works. Because whether you know them, they're there or not, they're still there. So it's acupuncture is forgiving in that sense. But the more over time you can look at how is this channel related to that? What are the 5-phase relationships? What does this organ do? How does it move? That's when you start being able to really, really flexibly apply things through different ways because you understand all the connections, right? Imagine having a patient come in and say, I have low back pain. Okay, we can needle your head, I can needle your arm, I can needle your leg, I can do local needling if we want, right? Because you can approach any one thing through all sorts of different connected structures. Got it? So with internal medicine, we still look at it through the same lens. It just sometimes we have to think a little bit more about what are we targeting, where do the channels go, 5-phase relationships, but it's essentially the same model. Pain is just easy to understand right off the bat because it's just, you know, what areas was it stuck and how do we get to that area? But that's a good question. Any other questions? Yeah.
How do we know which relationship to target? What the large tie?
Right.
Say a patient has the medial wrist pain.
Right.
You go to the ankle, thigh.
Right.
you can
Right.
do it over the outside of-
Yeah.
Reverse.
Right. Right.
Let's say go to the pelvic.
Right.
And we're using yin to treat the down.
Right.
So, we do the inside of the pelvic or the outside.
Right. Okay.
How
So-
do we determine?
Excellent question. So the question is, again, for online is essentially, if we have different ways of mapping things out, if we have different channels we can choose, how do we prioritize? Are we using the yin channel to treat the yang? Are we using like the tai yang to treat tai yang, tai yin to treat tai yang? Are we using the elbow to treat the knee? Or are we using the hand to treat the foot? Or are we using the shoulder to treat the foot? How do we choose? So whenever we are, and I will tell you that the same dilemma exists in TCM, right? If you open a TCM textbook, if you open up Deadman and count how many points treat headache, lots and lots and lots of points. You could probably find at least 30 or 40 points that are not local points also treat headache, right? So one of the things we have to take into consideration is specifically when we're looking at channels, first things, hopefully you're looking at the channels, right? So automatically, if let's say 20 points in TCM treat headache, where is the headache? What kind of headache is it? That will help us determine the point. In the end, sometimes it's not based on the theory, but based on what's happening in that patient's body at that given moment, which we determine through, for example, palpation, before we put the needle in. So whenever a patient's in front of us, when this patient comes in front of me, I have a theory in my head based on everything we talked about, based on where's the pain, based on everything, what points might be effective. After I determine what points might be effective, then I have to go in and actually see what might be best. So for example, the very first time she came in, I was thinking it could be the points next to stomach 36, could be the points lower down, closer to gallbladder 39. What do? I palpate. Which one is sensitive? And if I'm pressing it and doing some strong acupressure, does that change the pain? If it doesn't, we go to the next one. And we try to find which one will potentially, and why one over the other, I can't tell you. Sometimes it's just whatever's happening in the patient's body that day. So even between the third and fourth treatment, the point changed based on palpation. Okay. Sometimes you may not get a pain response and you can palpate by doing temperature changes, skin texture changes. So for example, these points on the back of the finger, oftentimes because they treat stagnation, stagnation doesn't only have to be pain, stagnation can be roughness to the skin. So it's very light palpation, right? About as light as you'd pet a caterpillar, right? Seriously, if you've ever, maybe you're all city people and pet caterpillars growing up. I don't know. We used to go out and like do that to caterpillars. As light as you would pet a caterpillar without injuring it, that's how heavy you palpate. And so I chose in her the right side because that's the side there was roughness on. Sometimes you have to do it in relationship to the pulse. If you're not used to taking the pulse, you use one of the other methods. So in my clinic, oftentimes we feel the pulse, do very light touch at the point, and we choose which point actually changes the pulse for the better, and that essentially becomes the treatment point. The last piece of it is that none of this is intended for you to just make stuff up. I mean, eventually you can. I'm not saying you can't, but we know pericardium 6 treats chest pain because how many thousands of treatments every year, right? Let alone probably hundreds of thousands of cases of chest pain throughout the last 2,000 years of Chinese history has it treated. So eventually, I don't have it here as a handout, but in a lot of my lectures where we do go in more depth, I have a trio. The trio is the theory, the indications. So what does the book say this point treats? So this side here, there's a certain list of things this point is known to treat. We can understand why it treats it, but let me see, if someone has breast pain, I might do this point other than another point in the same area that has no track record of treating breast pain, at least according to the textbooks. If I don't palpate anything, then I have to hunt for something else, right? So the first is the basic theory. The second is what is the track record of that point treats. So that means you have to go back and not look at that it moves the qi or calms the shen. What disease names does it treat? The actions versus indications, right? Lung 5 has a track record of treating low back pain, even in TCM. If it didn't, it wouldn't be in the book. So I know lung 5, I can use it for back pain. Now, is it the right kind of back pain? That's the theory. Does it work in that patient? I palpate. That's the third pillar. Theory, indications, which is history of use, and then palpation or other specific, you can look, sometimes points are red, sometimes they're cold on touch, sometimes they're hot. So there's something that we're going to have to see. That is the ultimate decider of which point will be potentially the point. Get the idea? So it's an excellent question because lots of points treat lots of things. But in the end, we have to eventually take from theory into, before we put the needle in, what's actually happening in the patient's body. We do that by touch, by visual inspection, by something along those lines. Yeah.
With that, the channel selection, same day channel, linear air channel,
Yeah.
function channel, site
Right.
channel.
Yes.
You know which one is the right there. Same thing.
Same thing. Same thing. You can choose. So for example, if I have low back pain, I may choose 2 or 3 points that have different channel connections and then palpate. In the end, you have to get into the patient's body and the patient's body will tell you, right? If we live solely in the realm of theory, hear me now and believe me, however many years from now, if you live solely in the realm of theory, you'll hit the target sometimes, but not as often as if you get into that patient's body and feel what's happening. Okay? Yeah, that's the essential answer. So usually on my PowerPoint presentations we look at the channel, we look at the imaging, we look at all of this, and then it gets us to potentially active points that we then choose through palpation, inspection, etc. Got it? Yeah. 1 or 2 more questions, and I think we have to call it a night.
Shall we on that thing on both sides? Would you ever needle any of these points on both sides?
Sure, absolutely. So the question is, if the pain is bilateral, can you needle bilaterally? And yes, but in your heart of heart, you need to know right treats left, left treats right. Yeah, but yeah, you can needle bilaterally. There's nothing inherently wrong with needling bilaterally. There's nothing inherently sacred about needling bilaterally, right? The modern convention, like in TCM of just automatically doing bilateral needling, is just that. It's a modern and arbitrary convention. Like when I studied Japanese acupuncture, we almost never did bilateral needling. Almost never. It's just not part of their worldview. So you can. I'm not saying bilateral needling is wrong. So I do a lot of bilateral needling. If a patient has pain across the whole back, oftentimes I get bilateral needling. Or you can choose just one side by palpation. If both sides palpate really strongly, needle both sides. It's okay. If you want to cut down on needles, then needle some points on one side, some points on the other side. Right? So in this patient's case, rather than loading up her hand with everything, right? Because theoretically, I could do lingu dabai. I could do 2 points, 2 points, too much on one hand. I don't want to overburden that. It'd be uncomfortable. She won't come back to see me. So we do some points on one side, some points on the other side, right? You can do it by palpation or you can alternate. It's okay.
There's a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess maybe you answered the question.
What was it?
I think it was essentially, it was really how, when you went from, in that case, the first set of points to the second set of points, what were the deciding factors?
Palpation. So it was by palpation. The other reason is that the neck pain resolved faster. The neck tension resolved faster and the facial pain was more lingering. So I chose more points that have a specific targeting of the face, right? So you have to keep on tracing and, Dr. So, the founder of New England School of Acupuncture, who was a wild man, he used to say that pain is afraid of me, it tries to run and hide. Yeah, that's the kind of guy he was. Yeah. I only met him for a short period of time, right? About less than a year before he passed away. And he was unfortunately bedridden from a botched spinal surgery. And I want to just go visit him because all of my teachers study with him. And so, I brought him some oranges and, some books. And he said, okay, show me where this point is. Show me where that point is. And the guy spent like 6 hours, like quizzing me on points and telling me it's wrong. Here, I'll show you where it is. So he was fierce, right? So you have to chase the pain sometimes. Pain moves, you have to chase it. You can't just say, okay, same treatment, we're going to repeat it 10 times just for the hell of it, right? Sometimes you do. Sometimes you repeat the same treatment. If you repeat a treatment, the pain is getting a little better and everything palpates the same, repeat the same treatment, it's fine. If the pain is not getting better, repalpate, recheck. Or if the pain is changing and shifting, moving, repalpate, recheck, and change points. Not necessarily in the same treatment, but in subsequent treatments. Or if there are certain points you like, rather than doing all points in every treatment, alternate, right? So in my clinic, instead of doing the pancake treatment front and back, same time, sometimes I do front treatment, sometimes I do back treatment, sometimes I do front, and then the second time back. On occasion, I like to do like needling and then throw some cups on someone. But if I really want to do a full back treatment, full front treatment, not on the same day. Okay, good. Other questions online or here?
What is long?
Oh, long retention, usually 30 to 45 minutes, right? And that's because how fast does chi move? That's a good question, right? How fast does chi move? Yeah, so remember the Neijing and the Nanjing actually say that the chi circulates through the body 50 times per day, which if you divide 24 hours by 50, it's about half hour, 28.8 minutes. So especially if you're using distant needling and you want the chi and blood to move through the entire system, if you're doing just trigger point needling, it's fine, in and out, you're done. But if you really want it to move through the entire system, the idea is you want to leave the needles in for at least one revolution of the chi. So 30 to 45 minutes, typically, based on patient tolerance and other criteria. Sometimes it can be too stimulating if it's too long. But if you use fewer needles, right? So notice I've never really used more than 6 or 7 needles in any here. Then you can get away with longer needling without overstimulating. Use 50 needles for like 50 minutes, probably not so good for some people. Some people it's okay, but for some people they're going to be wiped out. If your patients feel wiped out after every treatment, it happens once in a while. But if it's after every treatment, you're overstimulating. You're moving the chi and blood. It's like running a horse too far, right? Before letting them just rest. Okay, all right. I think we'll leave it there for the night. You have my contact. My website is up there. You can reach me through the website. My email is asianmedicine.org is my teaching website. New Jersey Acupuncture is my clinic in New Jersey. I practice in New Jersey. My email is drhenry@asianmedicine.org, but you can get it off the website as well. If you have questions, feel free to email me. Yep, maybe we'll at some point do another meetup, I'm sure. The Atlas is a good resource. There are other excellent books on Tung's acupuncture, but support your local Kamwo store. Those atlases are already been paid. I already got my royalty on all those atlases. So at this point, Tom has to get his royalties. So.
I think we're getting on the back of it.
Yeah, pretty soon. All right, so we'll end there. Thank you for those of you who are online. If you have more questions for those in person, we'll stay a couple more minutes while we're cleaning up, and then good. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.